Uh, okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the virtual Power BI days. I'd love it that you joined all of us. Matthew, we're seeing your alarm clock.
Okay.
Uh, so with us today we have Matthew Smythe, or Smith. Am I pronouncing it wrong, Matthew?
It's Smythe. You said it right the
Smythe.
first time.
Okay. So with us we have Matthew Smythe. He's from Sage Intelligence. They're doing some cool stuff over there, so do check them out after the sessions. So Matthew is going to present something to us about a use case, or several use cases even, as I understand it, customer use cases, and how they handled it at Sage Intelligence. So Matthew, please share your knowledge with us.
Cool, good stuff. Thanks, Jan. Right, so we're going to be doing I'm going to be doing a talk on fitting a square Power BI into a round financial reporting hole. We called it this because, I think really in the implementation that we've followed, we haven't used Power BI quite to the suggested implementations. And so it's just been a very interesting journey for us. So it's going to be a combination of a kind of use case study, but then also diving into a little bit of technical around the architecture and what we've done and how we've implemented it. My name, as Jan has mentioned, is Matthew Smythe, and I'm R&D manager at Sage Intelligence. I'm that little photo on the side there, not the guy fixing the bike. So if you're looking for me on LinkedIn, don't look for a guy that looks like the guy fixing the bike there. Right, so let's get started. So just a bit of background around Sage Intelligence. So we started, the company started about 19 years ago or so, and initially had been developing a desktop-based solution that basically allowed for advanced reporting within various Sage ERP products, but also some other competitor products. And then a couple of years into running that business, we were acquired by Sage. And then probably about 6 years ago or so, we started our kind of migration into the cloud. This was initially done through a Excel-based web add-in. And coming from the background that we were coming from, we initially had been focused primarily on financial reporting. And so very tabular-based reports, building out functionality for accountants and users to create their perfect profit and loss or balance sheet or cash flow reports, these kinds of things. And so we kind of started building this stuff into the cloud and built on a whole HTML5 web application. But probably about 2 years ago or so, we started seeing emerging trends within the market that people were expecting their accounting and other ERP type solutions to actually have embedded analytics and to be able to represent those views on how their businesses are doing in ways other than just a profit and loss or a balance sheet statement. So we started the journey looking at initially first our own JavaScript libraries to try and build our charts ourselves. But we very quickly found, as we had in the desktop days, that as soon as a user can see their data in one format, it's really important to them to actually play around with that data and change the format and edit it to how they want to edit it. And with some of our end users being accountants, it's even more important for them because they're reselling these reports and solutions to their customers. So about 2 years ago, we started on this pathway with Power BI. Last year, towards the middle of the year, we delivered our first implementation of this to the Sage Accounting UKI products. And we've been getting some really good feedback since then. And we're on a bit of a different pathway at the moment, looking at how to more tightly integrate our solution with these accounting products and make it more tailored towards their exact needs. So here's an example of some of the financial reports that we built out into Excel. As I mentioned, very tabular. The beauty of these was that each of those values you can see within a report are Excel formulas. So you can set your reports up once, run them out as many times as you want, and every month you don't have to go and do a whole bunch of re-editing. So we're looking to do a very similar type of thing with Power BI. So moving away from Excel and into Power BI. So why did we really consider Power BI as a BI solution to partner with within Sage Intelligence? So as I mentioned before, customers these days really, there's a need for visualizations. There's products out there that can do it very well. We started facing a fair amount of pressure from competitors who were starting to do embedded visualizations within their products, or partnering with other ISVs to allow their customers to visualize their data. Basically, to move on to the third point around the embeddable experience. So Sage Intelligence, historically speaking, is basically a Sage third-party product. So we using APIs that are provided by the various ERP solutions. And so when a user wants to use Sage Intelligence, they first sign into their Sage ERP. Then they go and sign into Sage Intelligence as a separate product. And so we really didn't want that journey to go another step of, okay, now you've signed into Sage Intelligence, now go into a Power BI application or a standalone application. We really wanted it to be more of a kind of flowing user experience. Then, as I've alluded to, we're a company that is really interested in providing depth of knowledge and understanding of your data. So just like static Excel reports weren't good enough for us, the same way we don't really just want static dashboards and analytics. So the depth of visualization that Power BI provides is really important for us. The third last point might not be popular with some people, but we've always considered ourselves a Microsoft engineering shop. We've supported Excel from the very early days, and it just seemed like a very natural and good chapter to add to our story around Power BI. We have a very small engineering team, so again, partnering with the likes of Excel or Power BI make a lot of sense for us. They deliver a whole bunch of features that we can get for free, basically. And then the final point on that one, why Power BI? Because Gartner says so. I mean, looking at that graphic, it provides quite a strong argument in terms of Microsoft being leaders within the BI space. So what we're going to be showing now is just a bit of our Sage Accounting integration, the one that we completed midway through last year. It's going to be showing, and I'm going to try and relay the story of a small business owner who is viewing this age debtors analysis report that we provide. What we'll be seeing is just it's slightly sped up in terms of loading out the Power BI report, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we start getting into the architectural components of this chat. But what we'll see is really how they can use this Power BI solution to manage their cash flow in their business. So what we can see here is the report is being run out. This is the age debtors solution that we provide. And what the user can see at this level is a very high level summary of where all of the cash that's outstanding in their business is going. So they can see, okay, well, there's my top 5 customers and the amount that each one of them is owing. But then further to that, you can start to drill down into this to see, okay, well, exactly where is that money outstanding and which particular sales is it outstanding from. And so what this means is that a user can, within Sage Intelligence, go to their dashboard, find out exactly which customers are owing, where those customers are, get all of their contact details, and basically go and follow up. Because for a small business owner, I think everybody on the call probably knows the old saying that says cash is king. So cash flow is so important. So this really provides a holistic solution where a user can go and get all of the detail that they need to improve their cash flow situation within their business. And we're just seeing a number of different views on that, more detailed views, and then also some informational kind of guidance. Because again, these are small business owners. Some of them we're finding are still a little bit fearful of Power BI. It seems like a complex system to them, and they're not always sure how to interpret the visuals that are being presented to them. So it just provides a great way for us to help them along by providing these informational kind of guidance and steps to help them. So now we're going to be changing gear a little bit. We're going to explain a little bit about our architecture and implementation. So moving away from the use case study side of things. So this is speaking much more about our historical architecture and a couple of the points around why we have historical architecture and why we have newer architecture that we're working on and how we integrated Power BI with each of these. So until recently, we were very terrified of storing customer data, and that was even before the days of GDPR and POPI and the likes of those. Being a small business and coming from that small business background ourselves, we were concerned about legislation and kind of any legal implications and security. But now having various counterparts within Sage that can help us with that, that's something that's less of a thing. But again, because of not wanting to store data ourselves, it meant that we were fully reliant on our source application that we're integrating with their APIs. So not storing data, being reliant on the APIs means that the current Sage Intelligence primary application basically relies on downloading data every single time a user signs on. The relevant data that they want to see in their reports, we have to download that into memory. And then similarly, when they leave, we flush all of that data from memory. Couple this with kind of the history that we've had in the company of always providing a very huge level of customizability to clients, particularly on the desktop, means that we were in a very interesting space of wanting to provide a lot of insight, but the mechanism of getting that data into the product to provide that insight was quite a challenge for us. Okay, so we're going to look at this very high-level architecture diagram. Basically, we're going to be focusing only on a particular part of it, and that's more the Power BI part, the part highlighted in gray there. What you can see on the left is the Sage source application. So in this Power BI example, that would be the Sage accounting application that we integrated with last year. The components on the top part of the diagram basically are the components that are allowing the Excel reports, and we're not going to go into any detail there. But then along the bottom part of the diagram, the part that's highlighted in gray, that's what we're going to be digging into a little bit more on this call. So the important parts there, obviously Power BI, but then within Sage Intelligence, really the main component that's enabling this functionality within Sage Intelligence is what we term the REST query engine. So we're going to look at that in a bit more detail, and we can move over to the next slide to do that. Basically what the REST query engine, which is all of these colored staggered blocks or pipelines within the middle of this diagram, what it does is it's an engine that allows you to pass into it a very complex SQL statement, perhaps doing joins on various data models that you want to build out into a denormalized object. It takes in all of that SQL, it then parses it, and it converts those to various API requests against the source application. It executes those API requests, it gets a response back from the API, and then it goes and builds out these tables into a single denormalized table that we can then build a report off. So this is happening every single time a user is signing on to Sage Intelligence and chooses to run out a particular report. That particular report has the SQL behind it. The SQL gets executed by the REST query engine. The REST query engine queries the API. And then at the end of the process, once it's got that denormalized table, it pushes it into a data set for Power BI to work with. So one thing I forgot to mention is you'll see at the top of the slide that this is flow number 1. So what I've done just to make these slides a little bit less cluttered, I suppose, we've broken down the flow of showing a Power BI report into 2 flows. So this is the first, getting data into Power BI. And then we're going to be looking at the second shortly, which is much more simplistic, which is basically just getting that report from Power BI to show it within the Sage Intelligence application. Considering this is a Power BI call and not just the Sage Intelligence call, let's focus a little bit more on the Power BI embedded capacity that we have. So really, the primary goal for us in implementing Power BI has been to try and give users Power BI perhaps without them even knowing that it is Power BI. We don't want users to have to sign up for a license for Power BI. We don't want users to have to feel they fully understand and know Power BI, but we want to provide that in a very seamless way. So the way we've done that is we have a Power BI premium license and a capacity that's sitting on Microsoft Azure. We go and create workspaces for every user that signs on to our application. And then that means that they have their very own workspace. We can push their particular data to that workspace, to a data set, and then link that to reports for them to view. So every new user that signs on, we have to create a new workspace. And when they're returning users, they obviously utilize their existing workspace. Okay, so we're going to look now at the next flow, which is basically we've got data into Power BI. Now, how does Sage Intelligence go about showing this report? So at the very same time as kicking off all of the REST query engine work of going and pulling that data back from the APIs, we also go and send the reports from the Sage Intelligence application into the user's Power BI workspace. Those are linked to the data sets that are being pumped full of data through the previous flow that we looked at. And then finally, once the data is present in the data set, once the report has been published to the workspace, then obviously because the two are linked, we can then through the Power BI APIs go and request the embedded Power BI report link, and we can bring that back to Sage Intelligence, and a number of seconds after the user has chosen to run out their report, it will then display the report. So now it's just important to, at this point in time, and I had alluded to it previously, before we started watching the video, is basically that this whole flow, because of the amount of data, because of the various API calls we're calling and executing against, and then trying to stitch that data back together, depending on your SQL statement, obviously. Because of all of that, we're finding that with this current architecture, for some of the more complex reports, they can take up to about 45 seconds or so to run out. And even then, there's certain things that we've, from a use case perspective, we've said, okay, you know, we would love to see this particular metric within the data's dashboard, but, you know, we just don't have the time to load all that data because users want their reports instantly. We've had to cut some of those out. So what it means is that really the current solution that we have isn't quite as performant as what our users would like. So that takes us on quite nicely into just the learnings from our pathway. We've noticed through the study of the personas that we have that there's a definite trade-off between performance and the richness of the data that we're pushing into Power BI. You know, we, as I have mentioned before, we take pride in offering very, very kind of detailed reports. Getting that detail of report takes time in terms of the amount of data you have to push into it. But obviously users want everything. They want performance reports and they want all the detail that they can possibly think of. So we're in a very interesting place with looking at how to deal with those. We are trying to implement Power BI in a way that best suited our architecture rather than taking a couple of steps back, fully understanding those personas and determining, okay, well, what is the level of performance that is acceptable? How neatly integrated do we want the solution to be? Should it be as seamless as what we can possibly make it through sticking to the Power BI, you know, standard practices and standard ways of integrating, or should we look at this thing differently to provide the level of reporting that we currently do? Again, touching on that, the Power BI best practices, we found that those documents are hugely valuable. So if you have Power BI implemented and you're looking at improving performance, definitely a good place to stop and read through all of those white papers. We found that it can vastly improve the performance. I've touched on the third point already, so moving on to the next one, which I've also mentioned. Our users, being small business owners, typically still have a bit of a fear of Power BI. So it's really important for us to wrap up Power BI in a way that we can quite easily remove some of that fear and some of the interaction so that it's easier for them to consume. Moving then on to the Sage Intelligence future. So I've mentioned that a lot of what I've presented is more of the historical architecture. So since the beginning of this year, we've been working with the various Sage products that we integrated with to basically get a tighter integration with them. I also mentioned that we were, a bit of a third-party application in terms of consuming the very same APIs that third-party developers with Sage have to consume. So what we're working on is more getting our own reporting database so that we can get more performant reports. Working through a generic third-party offering of an API has not been amazing for us. And so there's been a lot of frustrations in that are being addressed through actually getting a reporting DB of our own. And then we're building out an OData layer on top of that so that we can further streamline the process of getting data into Power BI because of its already native capability of handling OData APIs. We're changing the architecture a little bit to be more kind of core components that will be more easily integratable with other Sage applications. And then finally, two other challenges that we still have, is around solving the level of dynamism and customization within our reports. We need to get a realistic view of performance versus data richness. And then we're also learning, from a various couple of conversations with Microsoft that we are utilizing Power BI in a bit of an unusual way in terms of the large customer base that we're trying to basically give Power BI for free to. And we need to very carefully consider scaling and costs around this kind of philosophy that we have. So then I think this is the second last slide before we close. This is just a bit of an overview then of how that first flow would change. We can see it's a bit more simplistic, provided we don't go into the details of the CQRS arrow of getting data into the reporting DB. But the rest of it in terms of integration with Power BI is a bit more of a generic and kind of, a bit more, I suppose, best practices suggested kind of patterns approach. So thank you guys very much for listening and being an attentive audience. Please feel free to contact me on LinkedIn if there are any, more detailed questions or if you want to know more about Sage Intelligence in general. But otherwise, Jan, are there any questions on the Slack channel that we could take, perhaps?
Not on the Slack channel. There were some questions here in the GoToWebinar. You basically answered them all. At one point, great. Everybody was asking, hey, is this Power BI embedded to Azure? How do you get the report in the website? And then you gave that slide that basically explained it's embedded and it's embedded in this application. So unless you want to say something more about that, if you want to go more in depth.
Well, in terms of details on that, so yeah, we are running Power BI embedded. Currently, our user base is relatively small in terms of what our ambitions are. So we have around, I think, 300 to 400 users that are utilizing that. So we're running an A3 instance. It's very interesting for us to, get a good handle and basically an understanding of how users use reporting. So, within your actual accounting ERPs, there's actually, depending on your persona, your usage of reporting can vary quite dramatically. Small business owners might not even care about their reports, but accountants are using that stuff every day. So it's really important to us, as I mentioned, that we understand those capacities, how the various renders per hour and all of that work. When are people really reporting, which hours of the day for the various regions, that kind of stuff. And then I think in terms of additional detail on that, we've got a team here that have now been working with Power BI in embedded for just about 2 years now. We've learned a lot through the various ways we've tried to implement it. And we've got quite a roadmap ahead of us in terms of things we're still trying to do. So I think it would probably be good for me to encourage my team to participate in these talks and bring some more detailed content to you guys in the future.
Yeah. So Jeremy asked on Slack if you think you will get the speeds that you actually want with the new architecture.
Yeah. So already what we've seen with the first couple of POCs that we've developed, we're getting speeds for certain reports of around 3 to 4 seconds to run out those reports, which for us is pretty much what we were after. the way that the kind of primary ways to enable us to get those speeds is, as as the slides had mentioned, which I didn't really cover, is proper aggregated views within that reporting database. So making sure that your data is absolutely ready for being pulled through by Power BI for the various tiles that you've got within your Power BI report. Also following those best practices within those Power BI white papers. So that includes reducing the amount of tiles on your first report landing page. And yeah, there were a couple, but yeah, definitely give the white papers a read through. And if you've got any additional questions around that, just pop me a message and we can chat.
Yeah, okay. Rishi did ask as well something about the performance. If you have any tips and tricks about how you so far managed to improve the performance.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's a similar question. Making sure that your data and the views that you're pulling through into Power BI are as kind of summarized as they can be. And then also we've played around quite a bit with again, we found it within those Power BI embedded best practices white papers, is the preloading of some of those views. So some of the renders, can take a bit longer just because of the various JavaScript libraries that they're downloading and getting those already. So preload, if you take a look at that within the Power BI embedded APIs, is also something valuable that we've found. And then just, again, making sure that your reports are, your first page, don't clutter it with a million tiles. We've gone kind of with the general rule of thumb of having 2 to 3 visuals on your first Power BI report page, and then on the other ones you can go into a bit more detail. That generally seems to make the user experience of waiting for that first load to be a bit quicker.
Yeah, okay. And Mike was wondering, what is your experience with the cost model? So as far as he knows, the cost depends on things like times the report is opened, amount of data in the dataset, etc. What's your experience with that?
So for us, the amount of data we're pushing into Power BI, because we're making those views a bit or the data models a bit smaller and more summarized, we haven't really had any issues with actual hitting any data limits. We have also at this point in time a rather small user base with 300 or 400 users. And so our biggest concerns, and one that we're busy chatting with Microsoft about, but I can't really give an answer for right now, is the render limits within those A capacities. So if we're potentially looking at 100,000 users, and 10,000 of those happen to want to do reporting at any particular hour in a day, we're quite concerned around the limits more from a renders side of things. More than that, I think I would actually want to get one of my BI engineers to kind of comment a bit more. So that was Mike that had answered that. Asked that. Yeah, Mike, if you want to send me a direct message on Slack or whatever, I can probably get back to you during the week if you'd like that.
Okay. And Andre is asking, how do you provision the model in Power BI embedded? So basically the part between the data set and in the final report. Do you generate any Power Query or doc scripts, or do you generate any models? Do you know that?
I don't know that, Andre. Again, send me a message on Slack and I'll get the guys to respond to that one.
Okay, cool. Apart from that, the messages we've received, or that you've received, are basically saying thank you very much for all of this, for presenting. And I do share that sentiment. Thank you very much. And hopefully
cool.
we'll see more of Sage Intelligence in the future.
I'm sure we can make that happen. Thank you, guys.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Cheers. You too. Bye.